tests.
Yeah, always worth doing it. Hi guys, welcome back to Autosport. It's me and Phil again, coming to you live from Media Island at the Jeddah Corniche circuit in Saudi Arabia, where we've seen free practice sessions 1 and 2, and we've spoken to a few other drivers and team principals and everything today. We spoke about Red Bull at the top yesterday, Phil. I think we've got to go there again now, haven't we?
Yeah, on the surface, a much better Friday for them. Max under 3 tenths behind the leading McLaren, so you could say on the surface that's a good day. After all the crisis talk, have they changed anything? I would be very careful with that. I think it's more track specific that they just had a better Friday on this type of circuit. Maybe McLaren's pace isn't as dominant as last week in Bahrain, but it's a decent Friday for them, at least on Max's side.
Yeah, we saw Yuki Tsunoda obviously put it into the wall towards the end of FP2. Small incident, but another one of those things where he's trying to adjust to that team. It was setting back a little bit, maybe confidence-wise, but there won't be a lot to it. It wasn't a big shunt, was it?
It's one of those things you're obviously trying to get as much speed as you can onto the front straight and turn in a little bit too much. Clips the inside with his front left and then broke the steering rod, the track rod. Quite sizable damage, but nothing that will upset him too much. I think it was also a long run, so it's not like he was pushing, and it wasn't a qualifying lap where he was just lacking confidence on the limit or something. It's just maybe a little bit of lack of concentration or what have you, but he'll be fine, I think.
Yeah, off the track again, Red Bull, quite interesting day. Christian Horner spoke earlier on and said, look, all this, it's just noise, essentially, this talk about Max Verstappen's future, but it's noise that isn't going away here, especially this weekend, isn't it?
No, it's still one of the main topics, if not the main topic, isn't it? And you speak to people, you speak to, for example, Andy Cowell at Aston Martin, who could have said no, he's not of any interest, but he sort of had to deflect.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he could also not throw his current drivers under the bus, right? So he had to sort of say, oh, we're happy with Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
Obviously, he can't say, I'm going to take Max in a heartbeat,
yeah,
which he maybe wants to, but yeah, it's something that's probably not going to go away as long as Red Bull are struggling.
And you and I were part of a few select media that had brunch with Williams team principal James Vowles. He was asked about it as well, and he was quite unequivocal when he said the suggestion that Max might go to Mercedes. He said, definitely not, that's a bad idea. It's quite strong words from Vowles.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's what kind of dynamic does he bring to the team, right? He's got this entourage. Mercedes is very very well structured, and I don't know how well they would do with having sort of all the baggage, the yachts and all the baggage that comes with it. We know, Max and George Russell don't necessarily get on that well.
But if we were going to do that down that grid, there wouldn't be many teammates left for Max, would there? Lando maybe the only one.
Yeah, and then what about Antonelli? He's a new kid. Mercedes have spent so much time and effort bringing up. He seems to be the real deal. So.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Phil. Is there anywhere really for 26 that would take where Max would fit in really? When you look at Antonelli's there, you look at Aston, they're probably going to stick with Stroll, and Alonso arguably might be his last year in Formula One. There's not really a seat, A, that would appeal to him, and B, that could really afford him, I don't think, is there?
On the surface there isn't, but if your name is Max Verstappen and you've won the last 4 World Championships, you'd be foolish to say no to him.
Even if you're James Vowles or Andy Cowell speaking today. We spoke about James Vowles there. Let's move on to Williams, because on track today, the guys seem to do, Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz seem to be doing quite a good job, and Carlos is moving into that same area of the pace now as Albon, isn't he?
Yeah, it does seem to be that every time he gets into the car, he gets a little bit closer, a little bit more comfortable with the Williams. There is still a limitation on the balance, something on the rear of the car that is just inherent to the Williams DNA, and it's been like this for a while. And I think it's a little bit like, to an extent, what Hamilton is facing at Ferrari, what the second driver at Red Bull is facing. The incumbent, Alex Albon, has been used to this style of car, so he can drive around it a bit better than the new person coming in. But it does look like Carlos is really finding his feet, and he's already proving valuable to the team as well off the track.
You touched on it there about finding feet in a new team. You mentioned Lewis Hamilton. He's really, those feet are going from under him, aren't they? We saw him win that Shanghai sprint.
Yeah.
Fred Vasseur was in the press conference just behind us here earlier on, and he said, look, we all knew that was too early to start talking about Lewis Hamilton potentially having a title tilt. At the moment, he's struggling. Just now he said, look, if I get into the top 10 tomorrow, that's progress. He's really struggling, isn't he?
He is a bit, yeah. It seems like when he tries to get on the soft and get a qualifying lap out of the tyre. He's finding it real difficult to get the tyre in the right window, and every car is different. Again, this Ferrari is different in terms of how you get a tune out of it over one lap. Charles knows how to do this. Lewis, it seems like the China sprint was a one-off for now. So, he was a bit glum today. He's glum quite often on Fridays.
Yeah, he doesn't like much media on a Friday, but he was.
Can't blame him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was. We asked him to come on here, but he wasn't having anyway. But you look at those. So we just checked before we came on, and the times. I think he was over half second to Leclerc in both sessions, and over a second off the pace in FP2. So it's not a small problem that he needs to address, really, is it? There are lots of underlying issues that Lewis needs to look at.
Yeah, and Jeddah is such a fast circuit. It is a confidence track, isn't it?
Yep.
So you need to get your setup right. You need to get the tyres in the right window, and it cools down here at night, so it's not always that easy. Yep. So there's definitely some work to do there.
He was one and a bit seconds off, we should say, Lando Norris. McLaren are that dominant at the moment. We haven't even spoke about the fact that actually again today, bar Pierre Gasly surprise in FP1, which isn't as representative because it was during the day, but they look mega again around here, don't they? But albeit that the gap has closed a little bit. Yeah,
they do. I think we probably expected that Bahrain was probably suiting them a little bit more with how they can manage the tyres.
Yep.
This is maybe a bit more the normal picture, if you like, even if it's quite a difficult and different circuit again. But I do want to point out Lando Norris. He was, he was on point. He was probably slightly quicker than Piastri all throughout, and he spoke afterwards to us as well. He said, actually, I've worked more on myself today than on the car, so just trying to find that confidence that he was lacking so far.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, didn't we? And he came here, but it was quite doom and gloom yesterday for a guy leading the World Championship.
Yeah.
But it almost for me, he needs to put a full weekend together. So if he tops FP3, puts it on pole and wins like Piastri did last weekend, he goes into, I nearly called it a break then, he goes into the next fortnight completely differently heading to Miami, doesn't he? It is literally that on a knife edge with him, I think, isn't it?
Totally, because he can top every session, and then if he slips up in Q3, he's down to square one again. So he's got a big qualifying session ahead, not necessarily for the championship or anything, but just for himself to really click with the car and regain that confidence. Yeah,
still too early at this stage of the season to say the championship's on the line, but if he could get that dominant, I think that is the thing. I think it is a dominating weekend he really needs, isn't it? Because we saw it from Piastri last time out. I've got my any other business here. We spoke about Williams. Pierre Gasly we touched on there, topping FP1. Great for Alpine. They actually looked okay throughout the session as well, didn't they? Just, again, that midfield battle, when you look at Williams, you look at Alpine, there are so many teams now that are just going to be competing for P5 come the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's 1 or 2 tenths, you can be all the way down in P14. So probably wasn't expecting Alpine to be as strong here as they were in Bahrain. It is more of a power circuit. We know that's not necessarily their strongest suit, but so far so good for them.
What have you seen from today that makes you think tomorrow won't be just a McLaren 1-2?
Not much, no. No, I do feel like Red Bull are in a better position than last week, so I would, I wouldn't bet against Max to be third on the grid. I know Mercedes are there as well. But
say George was my potential dark horse. I thought in FP1 again. We're talking about the weather being different and everything, but he clung in there for a long time, didn't he, up there with them? So at the moment, it's the McLarens and it's George and Max, essentially, isn't it?
Yep, I would say so. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, see how wrong we were tomorrow when we come back to you after FP3 and qualifying. But thank you for watching and see you tomorrow.